There we go. So welcome everybody. We'll let everybody get on here, come out of the waiting room and it's good to be able to see. Let's see, don't show this again. Okay, there we go. Hi. Hi everyone. Welcome. Happy New Year. Here we are, 2026. I still can't believe it, Everett, when I'm writing like a check, which I know,
Right.
which is also so old-fashioned these days to
I was gonna say I
check.
haven't written any of those in a long time.
I still have a few people I write checks to, and I think, oh, I've got to remember it's 2026. Um, Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. And as we get started, people will be coming in. Terry, I know you're going to handle that. And what I'd like to do is a couple things. First of all, we're going to keep the chat off like we often do in the beginning so that people aren't distracted. We'll start with just a little brief presence practice, and then Everett and I are going to talk. And then at some point, probably halfway through or so, we'll open up the chat. I'll let Terry know, and you can put your questions in there. So in the meantime, make sure you've got something to write on. If you have a question that pops up, write it down so you don't forget. And that way you can put it in the chat when we get halfway through. We also have a graphic, a really beautiful graphic that Everett has created that we will put up on the screen when we're talking. It has a lot of information on it, so it may not be easy to see. So Terry will also put a link in the chat where if you click that link, it will give you access to that uh, to the URL with that page on it so that you can see what's happening. And we always record our Zoom gatherings. People email all the time afterwards saying, do you record? Yes, they're always recorded. They go up on the website within 24 hours. And we'll have we'll have the download link to this graphic as well on the site, as well as Everett's contact information with the recording. You can always find it if you go to CherylRichardson.com homepage, Exploring the Wisdom Years. Everything about this and our Zoom gatherings is in there. Okay, I think that's it for business. So let's just start by becoming present, like joining each other here in this moment. So if you feel comfortable, you can just, get yourself into a comfortable position. And you want to give yourself the gift of this time. So that means you want to remove any distractions. You don't want to be doing anything else while you're here. Give yourself the pleasure of your own company. And let's also, I want to be respectful of Everett's wisdom and time and his gracious generosity. So I want us all to get the most from this experience that we can. So just go ahead and close your eyes. I always like to say that when you close your eyes, your brain starts making alpha waves. You start to automatically relax and go inside. And take a few slow, deep breaths. As you breathe, if you extend the exhale, it engages the body's parasympathetic nervous system, starts to calm you down even more. Helps you to come into this present moment. And you can use your senses. Notice what you hear. Notice your body, what you feel, the chair, wherever you are, seated or laying down. It's such good self-care to come home to ourselves. Beautiful. And when you're ready, you can just open your eyes and smile. Smiling is good self-care too. All right, welcome, Everett. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad to be here too. I'm
Yeah,
honored to be here.
well, thank you. I have wanted to introduce you to the community for a while, and I just needed to get to a place in my own life and work where I was doing these gatherings on a more regular basis. And we have a really engaged community who's passionate about aging well.
Right.
And, we're less concerned with longevity and more concerned with the quality of life. Not
Mhm.
that we don't want to live long, full lives. We just want to be happy while we're doing it, right? And I feel like your work is so important and so valuable, and that you have done a really beautiful, unique job of taking internal family systems therapy, which we'll talk about, and applying it to the whole sort of field of peaceful eating, weight loss, aging well, taking good care of the body. So I thought maybe we could start with just, briefly tell people a little bit about yourself and what it is you do, whatever you feel most, is most appropriate.
Sure, sure. So my name's Everett Considine. And so one thing I like to tell people up front is I have a neurological condition that gives me a tremor sometimes. So if it looks like I'm shaking, I probably am, but it's no problem. It's just kind of a background thing. I'm not in any pain. And yeah, well, I'm a long time seeker of truth. I was at 18, I found a spiritual teacher and was in the spiritual community for a lot of years. And I'm also a systems thinker. I was a systems analyst for a lot of years and did computer systems on Wall Street. And later in life, I really discovered my calling by some retreats for gay men that I got involved in, where I found I really had an aptitude for facilitation. And from that experience in that gay men's retreat that I got involved and learned how to learned how to do those retreats and they had a kind of model of healing that involved the present moment and then kind of a simple parts map. They talked about it like your inner counsel. And and I was telling a friend of mine this is maybe 18 years ago, who was an IFS therapist. I was telling her about what we did in these retreats. And she said, that sounds so much like IFS.
Mm.
And she said, you should check out IFS. So I'm a go for it kind of person. So I got online. I'm like, I'm going to take some courses. I'm going to learn about this. And lo and behold, they had a 2 year training starting in 2 weeks in my
Wow.
city. And
Did
this
you,
was 15 years ago. This is before anyone had heard about IFS. And I jumped into that training and I never looked back.
Mm.
It was this beautiful model, the systems model of the psyche. I'm a systems analyst.
Mm.
So I just immediately was able to think in the way that this model teaches. And then in IFS, if you're not familiar with it, they have a concept of authentic self that's very central to the model. And so I felt really at home, and I hung out my shingle as a healer and I decided it would be too much schooling to become a therapist. It was
Mhm.
just, I didn't, it'd be like 12 years of school or something. So I decided to be a coach. And one of the interesting things is I also did a shamanic training in parallel to my IFS training. And I've always felt that that is one of people I get a lot of feedback from people about how unique and effective my IFS work is. And I think it's because of that, bringing both those orientations together. And then as fate would have it, I hung out my shingle and started doing IFS work. And, I won't go into this story because we don't have time for it, but I ended up working with people around food issues. and I ended up connected to a big community of people. And the leader fell in love with my work and started sending everyone to me. And over a couple years, she filled up my practice, and I just started to get this specialty in dealing with food issues.
Yes. Yes.
And that actually led to me co-authoring a book with her, led to me developing online courses, and I developed my own model that's IFS based, but it's really something that's kind of on top of the IFS model. And and I had part of this was I struggle with my weight also, and I had been trying to use IFS alone,
Uh-huh.
right? And it really needed more. It needed the structure. It was one of the things you mentioned in your blog when I say you need a food plan,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because parts work really, really works well in conjunction with a food plan. And
Yeah.
so once I understood that, then I was able to, have success where I really wasn't able to have success around my weight before.
Yeah.
And
So yes, so I remember I was introduced to your work, I think by probably listening to a vlog by Susan Pierce Thompson,
yeah,
who you co-wrote Resume with.
yeah,
I read that book, which I thought was great, it was so helpful. And your piece in there about using IFS for, parts work for food was really, it just rang true. It rang right. And so I remember I contacted you. I had reached a point, well, my father had died a few years earlier, and my father was so vibrant and alive. He had such an active mind and had all these dreams right up to the day he died. He didn't think he was going to die, and he was talking about wanting to go to Mount Rushmore for some reason.
wow,
But his body couldn't keep up. He didn't take care of himself. And I could see in the last few years of his life how food, I mean, at one point, the doctor said to him, if you don't adjust your eating, I mean, the doctor said this, I don't think this was very helpful. Let me say that up front, but the doctor said, you're digging your grave with your mouth. And, you can't scare people into losing weight and getting healthy. It does not work. It actually does the
not
opposite.
work. Yeah,
And it did the opposite for him. But I remember at one point, saying to him, Dad, if you're not careful, more careful about what you're eating, because his diet was all over
right.
the place, you may die. And he looked me in the eye and he said to me, Cheryl, if I die a few years earlier but get to enjoy the food I want, then so be it. Now, I respected his decision. He was very clear about that. But when he died, I thought, I don't want to get to the end of my life with all of this aliveness inside and a body that can't do anything about it. And that's when I contacted Everett. And I was probably 25 to 30 pounds overweight. I just didn't feel good in my body. And I didn't feel like me. I want to also say that I didn't feel like me. And so I contacted Everett. We had an intake call. And yes, Everett said to me, well, you need to be on some kind of food plan for us to work together. And I remember to this day, Everett, where I was sitting and I said to you, oh, no, 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 you don't understand. I've done the diets. I've done, I've read the books. I'm not going to do anything restrictive. Like, it's just, I'm too old for that, Everett. I've been around a long time. I really need to just make, peace with food. And you said to me, well, then I can't work with you. And I said, what? And you said to me, I remember, if you don't have some kind of structure in place, we won't get to meet the parts that are preventing you from getting where you want to go.
Yeah,
And we said our goodbyes, and I ruminated about that over the next couple of days. I mean, you'd think I would have known better, but it said something about how much food for me was wrapped up in much more than just
yeah,
losing weight and getting healthy. And so I contacted Everett. And then I went all in. I hired a nutritionist. We created a food plan specifically for me, but a structure with guidelines. I spoke to her every week. I think Everett, you and I talked twice a month. And I began the parts work. And what I realized pretty quickly on is without this work, I was never going to get healthy in the way that I wanted to. Without doing the inner work, I was always going to be on and off the wheel of
right.
So, and you were enormously helpful, and there were so many things that you said during that time that I would share with family and friends. And so, I
Well,
get,
let me also speak to, like, I think I would talk about the food plan differently now.
Mhm.
And the truth is, if you want to lose weight, and not everyone wants to lose weight or needs to lose weight, right? But if you want to lose weight, you have to have precision in what you eat.
Yes.
You have to have precision. And by definition, because you want to lose weight, that's going to involve some kind of restriction somewhere. But
Mhm.
it's the precision that allows you to do. If someone is just wanting to, like someone could take the peaceful eating way who really doesn't need to learn lose weight, but perhaps they've got a lot of food chatter,
Mhm.
right? So they want to calm their mind down, then maybe a food plan doesn't really matter to them,
Mhm.
right? But I just wanted to like add that little piece of nuance about the food plan.
Yes. And can you just say a little bit more about food chatter now that you mentioned that so that people know, like, just give us some examples of what you mean.
Yeah, food chatter is in fact, the my work is called the peaceful eating way because the point of the work really is to quiet the food chatter. So that, the two parts that we talk about in the beginning, because everyone can relate to them, is your food indulger, that part of you that wants the ice cream, that wants the cake, that wants the don't wants whatever, and then the food controller that's like, no. No,
Mhm.
we're not eating that. We said we were not going to eat in the evenings, right?
Yes.
Oh, but I, and so those parts literally, for some people, those parts are literally fighting 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Like literally from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, they've got this battle going. I call it the inner battle between these two parts.
Yeah, and
And
it's
that's food
voices
chatter.
like, yeah, it's voices like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that.
Yeah.
I said I wasn't going to do it, but I did it anyway. Or voices like, what is wrong with me? I get on a plan, I get started, and then a week into it, like I'm never gonna, or like you're just always thinking about what you're eating or what you're not eating or when you're eating. It's just that food takes up too much space in your life, and it's often attached to critical voices, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess let's just maybe, Terry, why don't we put up the graphic? And Everett, why don't you just say a little bit about the basics of IFS before we get into the actual
Yeah,
parts? How about that?
definitely. Yeah, so internal family systems was created by Dick Schwartz, 40, maybe 50 years ago now.
Mhm.
Time is going by.
Yeah.
I got my little recertified digital recertification thing, and I was certified 15 years ago.
Wow.
I,
Wow.
I thought I had 10 years in my mind for a long time.
Yes.
Um, but so maybe it was 45 years ago that Dick Schwartz created it.
Mhm.
And he was a family systems therapist. So he was, looking at the system of the external family. And he discovered by working with bulimic patients, that have that polarization, binging, purging, right?
Mhm.
Um, he discovered that we all have these voices inside of ourselves, and he got really curious clinically, and over a number of years developed this model of the psyche, and the most simple version of it is, uh, well, first of all, that we have authentic self,
Mhm.
that we have
Let
a
me just,
calm, yeah.
yeah, let me just stop you right there. Terry, you having a problem with the graphic?
Yeah, it's not letting me share my screen. I'm gonna put it in the chat though right now for everyone, the link.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
great.
I think that's the best way to do it
Yeah, I think
anyway.
so too. I think
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah. Okay. Great. So people can just pull that up and take a look at it. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
oh, so like central to the model is the idea that we all have authentic self, that we have a calm, clear center,
Mm-hmm.
and that flow state, that peacefulness that a lot of us are able to connect to. And but when we're not feeling that, it's because parts of us have become activated, either wounded parts that carry emotions, negative emotions, or protected parts that are trying to protect the wounded parts in the psyche.
Mhm.
And it's it's become, I would imagine maybe almost everyone on this call has heard of it at this point because in the last 7, 8 years it has really blown up.
Mhm.
And everyone's, lots of people are trained in it now, and it's primarily a form of psychotherapy, and but they train coaches, they train practitioners, and it's really broadly applicable to all sorts of things. They even use it in like Middle East peace talks.
Mm.
It's just this, it's it's a very, and what I liked about it when I discovered it was that it was a systems model, you
Mhm.
know, and that it was developed through observation, not through theory. So
Mhm.
that's like when you learn this model and you start to realize immediately, like, yeah, I do have different voices inside of me,
Yes, yes.
like immediately.
Mhm.
And even once you start to think in terms of parts, you'll even notice that people, like sitting in a restaurant, you'll hear people saying, a part of me, a part of me, a part of
Yes,
me, you know,
yes.
a part of me wants to do this, but another part of me is really concerned about it.
Mhm.
And so it's this very nuanced way of understanding what's going on in the psyche.
Yeah, so we have the authentic self, which is sort of like the wise adult in the room, right? And
Yeah.
that's the place that we want to return to.
Hmm.
And a lot of times we have different parts in us that are actually running the show.
Hmm.
And so it's not the authentic self or the wise adult. Sometimes I feel like my 5-year-old's in the middle of the stage of my life making decisions. Um, and a lot of times that's true. And I think that I don't know what you've seen, Everett, but I feel like even in my own life, for the longest time, I just wanted to ignore those parts or get rid of those parts. Like I saw, I didn't understand IFS at the time, but so often in therapy, I would say things like, oh, this part of me is just makes me, it ruins everything. And I just want it to go away, which of course was just giving it more power. And I imagine that in IFS, the work is all about loving and embracing the parts
It
of
is
us.
it is such a loving model.
Hmm.
Yeah, because we understand that like every part, no matter how screwed up its strategy, is really trying to help.
Yes. Yeah.
Even though it seems like a part's trying to sabotage you, when you get in and get to know it, you'll find it's trying to comfort you.
I remember when we first started working together, I want to just give an example because I think people learn best by stories and examples. I know I do, and a lot of people do. Yes, the image is great, isn't it? Everett, you did a great job creating this graphic. People love it. Um, I remember you first introduced me to the food controller and the food indulger, and we got specific around like who is my food controller.
Right.
Um, I think at first it felt like a mother superior, like this sort of old nun with a ruler in her hand or something. And if I got on the scale and I didn't like the numbers, she would like smack my knuckles and tell me, you've got to buckle down. And, I
Mhm.
would get really hard with myself. So there was that part. And then the food indulger was, to me, it was like, initially, it was like this big, loving grandmother who'd be like, "Oh, sweetie, you've worked so hard today. You deserve a cookie," right? Or, "Oh, you just took care of this one and that one, honey. Don't worry about your diet. Come on, like let's just give you some comfort food." And I remember you introducing me to these two parts, and then well, the first thing you said was, and I never forgot this, and I tell people this all the time, you said, don't shame, get curious. Because it felt like the food controller part of me was always shaming me.
Yeah.
You never, you're always going to deal with weight. You're never going to be able to buy the clothes you want to buy, or it's just this is always going to be a problem, and there's something broken in you that can't fix this.
Mhm.
And you said, don't shame, get curious. And you told me a story I never forgot. Do you remember that story about the movie theater?
Yeah, I think that was in relation to um so I went to a movie and it was and I ended up having like popcorn and candy, right? And I had been off that kind of food for a long time. right? And I remember talking to my therapist or this guy who was kind of a food coach for me at the same time. And he asked, he's like, "Well, what was the movie about?" And my food controller was getting down on me, right? Like, what's wrong with you? You've been so good for so long, and here and I remember going, oh, well, it was a really intense movie about the AIDS crisis in the 80s,
Mm.
right? And we both just like in that moment, we both just looked at each other and it was like, it's so obvious why I was eating,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? There was an actual why I was eating.
Yes. Yes.
And that is because of the dynamic, right, of trying to do, so if you're on a program, if you're trying to lose weight or eat healthy, right, that's your food controller,
Yes.
right? It's like, okay, we're going to do this, right? We're going to follow the rules. And then the food indulger comes in and messes it all up,
Mhm.
or else puts you in white knuckling mode, right? And the food controller's like, "Oh God, you're so terrible. Like we've got to control that food indulger." And the truth is, why did the food indulger show up? Like
Right.
we don't go there because we're so caught up in the food controller and shaming ourselves that we don't for a moment stop and go, "Oh, well, what was I feeling or what happened?"
Yeah.
Right?
Why did I just eat? Why did I just overeat at that meal? I mean, that was the
Uh-huh.
thing when you said, don't shame, get curious. That story was so potent for me because I thought, I always go right to, I'm bad somehow. I did
Hmm.
something wrong,
Hmm.
one of my parts. And it really taught me, and I think this is important for everyone listening, that regardless of where you're at in your journey to get healthy, to make peace with food and with your body, the first thing is to get curious. Like shame is never going to get you anywhere.
Yeah.
And you gave me permission to get curious. And I will say, Everett, that the way that that has lasted for me, certainly in doing the parts work that we've done over the couple of years now, is whenever I find myself with a critical voice around food, I immediately use that as a trigger to go, what's happening in my life right now that's
Yeah.
causing me to not feed myself well?
Yeah. Yeah. And this is like in my private practice, this most sessions are about this. Someone comes on, they're reaching out to me because their food controller is reaching out to me
Yeah.
to get their food indulger under control, right? And then I take us like, well, what's going on in your life?
Right.
What are the stresses you're dealing with? And I love the self-compassion that opens up for someone when they start to realize like,
Yeah.
Man, I am going through some really intense shit right now,
Yes. Yes.
right? And that's what's driving the indulger,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what's driving the indulger.
Yeah, it's like when I contacted you a few months ago and I'm like, Everett, I'm really worried. I've put on like 5 or 6 pounds, which may not sound like a lot to people. I know it didn't sound like a lot to me when I had a lot more weight to lose, but I knew something was happening.
Mhm.
And I contacted you, as knowledgeable as I was, I contacted you and I'm like, I need to figure out what's going on here. I need to get back on the program. And you said to me, tell me what's been going on in your life. And I tell you, I lost my best friend. I lost my mother. I lost my father-in-law. And I
Yeah,
remember, like, when I finished, I remember you saying to me, well, of course you're eating. Like, of course you're like, do you hear what you just said? And I needed it mirrored back to me because I was in it. And I
yeah.
think we get stuck in our lives, we can't even see that, oh, I am exhausted taking care of my mother or my elderly father, or
Mhm.
I'm working too much, or I'm going through a divorce, or I'm in the middle of dealing with an illness and I'm terrified, or I'm lonely. I don't have anybody in my life. And food is just so much easier to focus on, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because we can't see when we're in the bubble of it all.
yeah. You
So,
know, and the food is so our relationship for those of us that struggle with food, um, our emotional life is integrated into our eating life, they're just integrated, like most people don't even feel the feelings anymore. They're just fixated on the craving. They're
Yeah.
not feeling the shame or the loneliness, right?
Mhm.
And so yeah, so often the session is so the thing that's interesting, right, is that when you shift the focus to the stress that's causing the overeating, a whole different kind of intervention shows up because suddenly it's about more self-care for you, and so you're not being driven to the food.
Right, right. Which brings up a good point. Somebody just mentioned this in the chat, which I know I forgot to say, Terry. We can open the chat. People can put their questions in, but please don't get lost in the chat, people. Please stay with us. Somebody just said, oh yeah, I can't get into it, Terry, because you have it closed. You can open it up. Um, Oh, they said, tell that to the medical community. This is what I wanted to say. I also remember when we started working together, Everett saying to you, Everett, I'm in menopause. Menopause is really hard. You can't lose weight. I said this to you. It's impossible to lose weight when you're in menopause. And I remember you saying to me, well, Cheryl, I've worked with a lot of people, and actually, sometimes what I find is when people actually do this work and start paying attention to what they eat, menopause has nothing to do with it. It's not true for everyone. So whether you're in menopause, andropause for men, perimenopause, going through an illness, aging, a body metabolism that's maybe burnt out from dieting, we often we go back to the tools, like you said, of the food controller, the dieting. Well,
Hmm.
GLP-1s now are so
Hmm.
popular, and I have friends that it has changed their life. It's been a blessing, and they also know that if they don't do this inner work, they're not going to be able to do the things that have to happen in order to age well, like build muscle and take care of metabolism long term. So I just want to say that this is the foundation. It's what you're saying. Like, we've got to be able to look at what is going on in our lives and how is that fueling our unpeaceful relationship with food
Yeah.
and with eating.
And the thing that's so interesting is it's so complex. Like no person should feel bad about the fact they can't control their eating by themselves.
Yes.
Because it is so complex. There's so many different focuses that you need, right?
Yeah.
You need that internal focus on your emotional life, but then you also need to have the right kind of external support to
Hmm.
give you the accountability and the oomph that you might need to break,
Yeah.
unhealthy habits. And
Yes.
there's just so much in play. That's why when I developed this parts model for the peaceful eating way, there's like 8 parts, and each part has like 5 to 8 archetypes. There's a
Mhm.
lot of different parts.
Yeah.
And because it's also a very different struggle for each person.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it's really important for people to hear that every body is different, every life
Mhm.
is different, every person is different. And therefore, there's no one size fits all fix. They're just, I mean, that's what good self-care coaching teaches you early on, that human beings are complex. And, we need each other. We need to delve into who we are and what's going
Yeah.
on for us. There's not an umbrella model that works long term in a deep way. Everett, does it make sense for us to just maybe touch on a few of the other parts, like the protector parts in your model? And then I'm going to go, Terry, I'm going to go to the chat. You can put your questions in. I'm going to look at the questions while you're talking about that so I can
Okay.
choose the ones that are most applicable to the largest audience.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. So there's a part that I came up with every once in a while when you're synthesizing a lot of work, right? You're pulling from lots of different places, right?
Hmm.
And I've done that with this work, but this is one of the things I feel like, no, I really came up with this. I didn't pull it from anywhere else, right? And one of the things I would notice when people would come to me and say, I'm trying to follow this plan. I really want to do it, but it's just not working. I can't do it. Almost always, when I would say, what kind of external support do you have? They would say none. They're like, no, I'm a do-it-yourself person. I don't like to rely on other people. And I started, and then I would shift to getting them to a place where they could get external support. And then once they did that, they'd be on their way,
Hmm.
right? But
Hmm.
I started to notice that there's a part that I call the isolator. That and this is especially prevalent in all addictive habits. That we have a part that wants to isolate us. It's secret eating, right? Or secret smoking or secret drinking, right? We have a part. And so that has turned out to be a real game changer for a lot of people to realize that they have a part that's keeping them from reaching out for support because there's so much support now.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, available to us, right, for anything and everything.
Hmm.
And so one of the parts in my parts map I call the isolator, and there's different kinds of isolators, the soloist, and so the first two parts were the food indulger, and the food controller. And of the food indulger, there's the compulsive child, right? The part of us that just wants to grab food right away. There's the loving mother. I think you mentioned that in your blog, right? That part that's like, you deserve this, you deserve a treat, right?
Hmm.
There's the productivity fueler. I've had a lot of very successful women say to me, I have conquered everything in my life except my weight.
Yes.
And they're confused by it. And really, what I discovered was the reason they haven't been able to conquer their weight is that they actually use food to fuel their success.
Okay. Say a little bit more about that. Like, give us an example of what you mean by that, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, so the productivity fueler, right, is people that need to be eating chips all day long, or they're doing something boring on their computer, and they need to eat. They eat for more energy. They eat because it's the middle of the afternoon, and they're gonna feel like they're gonna fall asleep, and so they use food
So
to
also it
fuel
could,
productivity.
well, yeah, and it could also be like, this is how I'm going to get through this boring task. I'm
Absolutely.
just going to like, have you, like, I know I've done that in the past where I'm doing bookkeeping, which I'm really good at and I'm bored with. And I'll
Right.
be doing it and I've caught myself like eating a cookie before I even knew I eat it. It was
Yeah.
gone before I even
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
because it was fueling me. It was getting me through whatever it was I didn't really want to be doing.
Right.
And I think that that's a thing that a lot of people do is in that way, the habit of eating
Right.
makes something that is intolerable tolerable.
Hmm.
Driving, think about that. Like, oh, I've got a long
Hmm.
drive. I hate driving, but I'm going to eat in the car, and then that's somehow going to make it easier,
Yeah.
more tolerable, I should say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So again, just different types of part. I have a party girl indulger that, just, they can follow their food plan when they're on their own, but get into a group and their food plan's out the window because they want to join in,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
And again, we're all adults. Everyone can eat how they want, but if you're trying to achieve something, and the fact that every time you go out, you end up having a couple drinks and eating, a bunch of appetizers means that you can't lose weight that
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
When you've been so good the whole week up until then.
Yes.
And
Brad put in the comments section, he identified a part called the food rager. And when he got curious about it, that part, it told him screaming and yelling and wanted to break things because the rest of me feels I have to be so buttoned up with no room to lose. And when I asked what it needed in very colorful language, it said, give me credit. I lose 20 pounds and all you give me is if I could just lose five more.
right,
That's,
right.
yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a great example of what goes on inside. And also the lack of self-compassion,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Especially when we have these real hard driving,
Yeah.
achievement-oriented parts.
Well, and I think I know also I've identified in me A challenge, like I love a challenge. And for the longest time, reached my goal. And then over time, it slowly increased because my weight increased because I didn't have a challenge to replace the weight loss challenge with. And the challenger part of
Mhm.
me was like letting the weight creep up so that I could then
Mhm.
go back to the game of losing weight.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I think, Brad, to your point too, that, I mean, to your point, Everett, to Brad's food rager, it's what you said earlier. The place we
Mhm.
want to start is with curiosity and compassion.
Mhm.
What's happening in my life
Mhm.
that I'm not seeing? And I don't think we can do that alone. I mean, you said to me very early on, Everett, well, no, as a matter of fact, at the end of our work together, when I said to you, Everett, tell me what I need to do to stay on track. Like, what advice do you have with me moving forward? And you said to me, if you feel yourself falling off track, the first thing you want to do is get support. Tell somebody the truth and
Mhm.
get support. And I've remembered that and I've done that because life is going to happen. Hard things are going to happen, right? And we're going to need that support at different times. People die. I mean,
Yeah.
my God, you go to a funeral, the food there is insane. You know, I mean, not obviously not at the funeral, but at the mercy meal afterwards, right? Uh, although I'm sure if they had food at a funeral, everybody would be lined up because it's just so uncomfortable to feel difficult feelings, and they really come up during difficult times. So,
Yeah.
any other parts you want to mention, and then um, I'll ask you some of the questions here.
So, so the rebel,
Hmm.
right? A lot of us, when we try and follow a plan, we have another part that's like, F that. I'm not going to follow that plan. So I've spent a lot of work helping people work with their rebel parts, and then caretaker, you're trying to take care of yourself, but Aunt Sally wants you to eat her whatever she just made and you eat it
Hmm.
because you want to take care of her. Taking care of her is more important than taking care of you.
Yes.
Right. And then the inner critic shows up in so many different ways, especially around a lot of the discouragement that people feel on this journey.
Which sounds like what?
You can't do this. You'll never, you might as well quit. You're just gonna, if you lose this weight, you're gonna gain it all back, right? Just really, the critic a lot of times is trying to keep you from feeling like a failure. So it's trying to get you to not do whatever it is.
Hmm.
And um, and so, sometimes when people come to me, it's willingness that we work on because they're
Hmm.
not even really willing. They want to be willing, right? I want to be willing to eat healthy again, but I'm not.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
what we work on,
Hmm.
right? And there's usually inner critics involved in the lack of willingness. And then, a lot of people, I do my 12-week course, The Peaceful Eating Way. There's a lot of people who start that course in a place of wanting to be willing but not being willing. And then after they get enough of the learn enough of the model and start to get it to know enough of these parts, then the willingness shows up,
Yeah.
you know. And then they're on to that part of the journey, right?
Yeah, I want to, there's a lot of questions about support. So let me ask you first, how does this model, how would you say this model works with people who have certain illnesses like Hashimoto's or are in menopause or find that they have kind of like a biological set point for their weight and they can't seem to move beyond that? Like, do you have a kind of general response to, uh, go ahead. I know you.
Yeah, so I'm food plan agnostic in my work. So I'm not promoting a particular food plan to people.
Hmm. Hmm.
And a lot of people have something they've done that works for them. Now,
Hmm.
I have worked with Bright Line Eating, and I know that is a food plan that someone can use that
Yeah.
will get
Yep.
them where they want to go. And a lot of times that is the first thing you want to know is you want to have a way, you want to have something to do that is going to work.
Hmm.
And I think what you did was brilliant. You went to a nutritionist, a
Yep.
dietitian, and
Yep.
they'll absolutely give you a food plan that you'll be able to lose weight with.
Yeah, and I want to say that I think for me this is important. I found a nutritionist who was really kind of aligned with some of the things that were important to me, like eating well, eating whole foods, eating
Right.
organically, and eating simply. I'm not a big cook. I'm not really into cooking, so she was able to really support me in understanding the importance of protein
Yeah.
and how I could get simple. So I think we need to going to, let's say, a dietitian for a standard diet, the more you can individualize what you do, the more self-loving it is, I think, and the more success you're likely to have. Um, there's, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's what if you are dealing with specific health concerns, I think it's great to have a dietitian involved,
Yeah.
right? But you also might plug into a system where there's a lot of expertise around that,
Mm-hmm.
in the group that you're joining.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other th Oh, the other thing was, a lot of like when before I discovered the approach that worked for me, I really thought I was just going to be an overweight guy because
Mm-hmm.
I tried so many different things at different where and I had all these reasons like it's a set point, it's my hormones.
Yeah.
And then the truth is once I was actually able to follow a food plan
Mm-hmm.
that had the right amount of calories for weight loss, the weight just came off. It was a
Mm-hmm.
total illusion.
Yeah.
It was a total illusion. And one of the things in bright line eating that there's a lot of older women who never had any sort of success, and everyone has success with it if they can do it.
Right.
If
Right.
they can do it.
Yeah.
And and even GLP-1s, all they do is cause you to eat less.
Mm-hmm.
And then you lose weight. I mean, that almost disproves what we're talking about, right? You
Mm-hmm.
get a shot that makes you eat less and the weight comes off,
Right.
right? So it really, I believe it really does come down to that.
Mm-hmm.
And
So, um, so in terms of things like I'm looking at the questions, hormonal changes, um, all of those things, you're saying, depending on where you're at, we're saying individually, depending on where you're at, what's going on for you, you want to be able to get the right food choices,
mhm.
the right food or the best food plan for you and your body. And then that's where you can begin to see what you bump up against as you begin to use that plan.
Well, I bet you could get on ChatGPT and really talk about the specifics of what you're doing, and it could
Great
pull
idea.
from a bunch
Yep.
of different, it could probably give you a food plan.
Yeah, it's a really great idea. It's
Yeah.
a really great idea.
And it could back it up with its sources and why,
Hmm.
it's not like it would just spit out a food plan you'd have to use. You could really talk about it.
Yes.
And
So let's talk about support because a lot of people are asking about, one of the things that's interesting about you, Everett, is unlike a lot of people that I've seen in your position who, create something that's really useful and helpful, they tend to go away from individual work and suddenly they're doing courses and then they go from courses
yeah,
to like, but you've really stayed kind of multi-user friendly, like you do individual coaching for
yeah.
people and you've got the Peaceful Way Eating online course. How long is that course?
It's 12 weeks.
And do you think that if people were doing is is one better than the other, or I
Well,
mean,
I think everyone should do the course because you're going to learn a whole language
yeah.
and be able to understand what is going on inside of you and why when it comes to food.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and then if you can do sessions with me, I just, I know so much at this point. That's what comes from 15 years of just do like continuous one-on-one work. And I love my one-on-one work.
Yeah, I can
Like
tell.
I'm not someone that's like, oh, I can't wait till,
Yeah,
I just have
yeah.
400 people in or whatever.
Right,
Um,
right, yeah.
and
So you're
so
saying, yeah, so people do the peaceful, and that's available on your website. Terry will put your website in the chat.
yeah, yeah.
Um, that would be a good way for them to get familiar with the basic, I mean, not the basics, but the foundation of what you're talking about. And do you have like a supportive community that people can join? Or was that?
Well, there is a community when you join the course, and then
Mhm.
I have another like continuity program after someone does the course called Peaceful Living that people can continue on in.
And that are you involved with that at all?
Oh yeah.
You are like,
Yeah.
so that's like an ongoing, kind of like a support system for people.
Yeah, yeah, and I also have a peaceful eating group coaching where
Okay.
we do two coaching calls a week for people that are really actively focused on
Yeah.
their eating.
Okay.
And then I've got one-on-one work available
And is
with me.
that all at everettconsidine.com? People can
Yep.
find those different options. Okay, great.
Yep.
Um, let's see. Just looking at the other questions here. Somebody says, I'm disappointed you're using the words good and bad to describe food and behavior. She's probably talking to me.
Yeah.
That's probably just an inner critical part.
Yeah, and people too, um, if you're really careful about your languaging, like that person might be a therapist, like has a lot of sensitivity around languaging. And I actually, in a lot of my teaching, I really get people to stop using good and bad,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Just to take the morality out of what they're
Yes.
doing,
Yes.
to use precision where you're precise or not precise. But
Yes.
um, but it, but I think when you're talking to a large group, there's a kind of shortcut when you say good and bad that's kind of people kind of understand,
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But I think it's great to point it out so that we can just make a point that,
Uh-huh.
I think some of us have a really strong inner critic inside, for example, or some part that
Yeah.
is always judging us
Yeah.
ourselves. I shouldn't have had that. That was bad. Oh,
Yeah.
this is what I should be eating. It's good.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. So how flexible can you be with food plans? Um,
So so if someone were working with me, let's say you wanted to get into this, or you want to lose weight and you've never been able to, what we would work on is your willingness. Right? We would do parts work around the parts of you that don't allow you to settle into something in particular.
mhm,
And some people don't, there's people that don't want to do food plans and they don't work for them. And maybe there's something else that works for them.
mhm,
But I just found out early on that if I was just trying to help someone that had very unstructured eating, that that my I didn't get the amazing fast results that I get with someone on a food plan.
mhm.
Because who's to say whether you just wanted that cookie?
Yep.
You can have a cookie. You're an adult. You can eat whatever you want,
Right,
right?
right.
But if there's no prohibition against having a cookie, then how do you notice the part that's making you crave the cookie? You
Hmm.
can't. And
Right, right. Um, would you say, in terms of somebody's asking, how does your online course compare to the one-on-one coaching? Um, I think we've probably answered that in that the course itself gives you a really good, strong
Yeah, like I
foundation
think
into
if
the
someone really
foundation.
wanted I would like do get into the course, and then as you got into it, you're going to start doing some parts work yourself, and maybe you'll find that you feel like you need more support than what's
Yeah,
in the course,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Are
and
there other, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Everett.
no, that's
Are
it.
there other forms of support? Some people are asking, what do you think about the 12-step programs? Like, oh,
Oh my
what,
God, I love 12 step.
you,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any of the 12 step work that you're willing to do and can do.
Hmm.
I'm a 12 step person myself.
Yeah, me too.
Bright line eating, it came out of the 12 step. It's an addiction model. So
Yeah.
I work a lot with the addiction model.
Hmm.
And yeah, dive in. 12,
Yeah.
12 steps, the most support you can get.
I was going to say what I love about it too is you can always find a meeting online at pretty much any time. It's
Yeah.
crazy,
Yeah.
you know.
You can get 24/7 support.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I really so okay. So I've kind of covered a lot of the questions that are in here. Someone asked, this is a good question. Does your program help with gaining and maintaining weight? Because I feel like I'm
Sure.
in the minority of people who lose their appetite during stressful times.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you would probably want to be on a food plan that you know that if you eat this amount of food every day, it's what you need. And then we would just work with you would work with your parts around that,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And so yeah.
Um, okay, so when we're talking about the parts, one of the things I wanted to make a point of talking about, Everett, is what happens when you work with a part and what that part is actually, where that part comes from. I know this is a big question, but
Mhm.
where the part comes from and why it was useful at one point. Because to me, it really speaks to the foundation of being able to have compassion for oneself, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So if we were to use an example, let's say, I don't know, the rebel,
Mhm.
right? Where might that part come from?
Yeah, our rebel parts are really important, right? Because they're parts that try and get autonomy. Right. And so maybe you grew up in a really controlling household in a controlling family. So that rebel was really important for you to individuate, for you to separate and you to say no.
Yeah.
Right. And also, if someone has trauma where they were being forced to do things, like a rebel is really important there, right? To
Mhm.
say no to things that are harmful to you.
Mhm.
And then once you have that rebel protector, like you're saying, that part can stay around, and then maybe later in your life, a part of you comes up with an approach that will work for you, but the rebel says, you can't make me do that. So it starts rebelling against other controlling parts in you,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yep.
And we see that, most of our parts were created long ago for
Yeah.
some coping mechanism at some age.
Yeah, like you might have had to have been a caretaker for siblings
Hmm.
or a parent,
Yeah.
and you couldn't say no. You just had to take care of, and so you
Yeah.
grow up taking care of people. It becomes a job, a very well-worn groove.
Hmm.
And before you know it, your caregiving gets overboard and you turn to food because I know you and I have talked about this, it's your only source of pleasure or it's an
Yeah.
escape. Or I know, Everett, I've been out to dinner with people before and, taking good care of myself. And all of a sudden, somebody starts talking about a problem and they're going on and on and on. And I step in to try and caregive to like offer some advice or to like, and they don't want to hear it. They just want to go on. And I've watched myself start eating more and more because I'm feeling
Right.
the tension
Yeah.
in my body of like either I'm bored with this and I
Hmm.
want to be done with it.
Hmm.
And that could very well come from growing up in a family where parents talked your ear off about their problems and you couldn't escape.
Yeah.
And so you used food as a way, or maybe they used food as a reward, and suddenly you find yourself out to dinner listening to stuff, or you're bored and you don't want to listen to it. It served you as a kid. It kept you safe. It kept you as part of the system at a time when you couldn't leave because maybe you were eight, right, or five. But as an adult, that part that's so well developed is no longer serving you. And
Yeah.
I love how you bring people back to where that part began and how it was really trying to take care of you
Yeah.
and how it's now and what it and determining what it needed from you then. So you can give that part, you can sort of reparent and hold that part so that it's not running your life today in a way that doesn't take care of you.
Yeah. There's a whole, we build relationships with parts in internal family systems, but we also can transform and heal parts.
Mhm.
And when you transform or heal a part that's carrying, let's say abandonment, then that when you heal that, then that abandonment doesn't show up next time. And
Mhm.
so if the wound doesn't show up, then the protective parts that are built up around it don't get activated.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'm so glad you're doing the work that you do, Everett. I'm really grateful. I have to say, the older I get, the more grateful I am to people like you who do love the individual work and continue to do it.
yeah.
Because I think the model you've created is quite, I mean, I'm always saying to you, Everett, you have to write your own book, right? I'm always saying
Mm.
this stuff. However, I actually think it serves people much better in a course format. I really do. I think that you get this whole notion of peaceful eating, which is truly that, right? It's not, you're not saying lose weight in 30 days. This is really,
Not about weight loss, actually.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I love that your approach is, I mean, you've dived into this. You get it like nobody's business. I don't think there's anybody else that's used IFS in this way. I haven't
There
seen it.
really isn't. I had a therapist who's doing IFS therapy start with me recently, and it used to be I thought I would just send people to other IFS therapists. I thought, oh well, they'll get the, but people come back to me, and you know what it is? It's because I'm a coach,
Yes.
and in coaching we're trying to do something,
Yes.
right? We're like trying to do something, and that's not therapy.
Yeah.
Therapy's not about doing something. Therapy's about healing. And
Yeah.
I'm a lover of therapy in therapy and have been for a long time. But the fact that I'm a coach and that we're trying to do something has allowed me to create this way of using parts work that's different than the way a therapist uses
Yeah.
parts in IFS.
Yeah. I really love that you do process work in terms of getting to know your parts, but it's always then anchored in what are you going to do differently? Like
Yeah. Behavior
let's
change.
help you change your behavior.
Mhm.
Exactly. So I'm really grateful that you joined us, that you shared your wisdom with us. I'm so grateful that this is recorded. It'll go up on the website probably within 24 hours, people,
Yeah.
so you can find it there along with the graphic that you can download. It's a beautiful graphic, Everett.
Mhm.
I hope you use it a lot because I think it really works well. And again, you can learn all about Everett's support at everettconsidine.com. The link is in the chat. It will also be on our website, so you'll be able to get to it right there. And I love that the peaceful eating course. Can people start that anytime, Everett?
Yep, yep. You could go
Okay,
start it
great.
today if you want.
And then the
Yeah.
other course you mentioned, the continuity course,
Peaceful living. That comes later.
that comes
And
later.
then if you want to, part of what we offer in peaceful living is access to the group coaching that I was talking about. So for
Oh,
the
okay.
3 months, you have a fair amount of access to me,
And I
when you're
know that
taking that.
I saw something, was it last week? I know that every year around this time you do like a year-long individual coaching special where like,
Yeah, you know what I decided was what I would suggest if someone wants to do one-on-one work with me
okay,
for this year is to get my 10 session package.
okay,
And because I think my January and February are booked up, so we
they are.
probably won't be able to get started until March.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well,
But that is something I started to do a couple of years ago where I do one session a month with people,
yeah,
and I love it.
yeah,
And people love it because, you get off track, you know that you're going to talk to me in 2 weeks, and
yeah,
then we get you back on track. It's
yeah.
just like such a great container
Well,
for
especially because
support.
it's action oriented. So,
Yeah.
and it is coaching. And when it's coaching, it's great. You don't necessarily have to do it every week, but it's a great way to
Hmm.
stay on track. And Lori, yes, there are group classes. We've been talking about it. So you'll see the Peaceful Eating Way course. You'll see it on Everett's website, and it is with other people, right?
Yeah.
The continuity courses as well. Okay, great. Well,
And I want to just say one last thing. Just in presenting this to everyone, I want to just say I'm just scratching the surface of something
yeah,
really profound and complex and rich.
yes.
I think the things we touched into were good, but there's just so much more,
There
you
is.
know.
And I'm glad you said that, Everett, because every now and then when you're like launching your course or you're letting people know about it, you'll do like a couple of free videos.
Mhm.
You'll do like you know, yeah, a couple. And you always offer such valuable information. I save all of them. If you have like a deck or graphics, I always save it because I find going back to them just keeps reminding me to be loved, don't shame, get curious, be loving with myself. And so I would encourage people, even if you don't take a course or you don't do any one-on-one coaching, make sure you get on his email list so that
Yeah.
if he's doing anything, any kind of introductory free videos, make sure you sign up because you'll get the recording. I think you usually record them
Mhm.
and you'll learn a lot that way as well. And it won't even cost you anything. So
Yeah.
I love you, Everett. I think
I
that,
love you too.
I just think your work is beautiful. I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful to all of you for showing up today. And those of you who are watching the recording, I wish you all the best with this journey that you're on. We all have to eat. Why not make it a good relationship, right? All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful day. Thank you,
All right.
Everett.
Bye bye.
Bye.